December 2nd, 1993, Colombian soldiers surrounded a modest house in Medellin. Pablo Escobar, the world's most notorious drug lord, tried to escape across a rooftop. He didn't make it. His death marked the end of an era. Here are 10 times cartels messed with the wrong military.
This morning, a video circulating on social media showed passengers on a plane at the Culiacan airport ducking for cover. Children scared after the sound of gunshots erupted.
October 17th, 2019. Mexican soldiers rolled into Culiacan, Sinaloa with one goal: capture Ovidio Guzman Lopez, known as the Mouse, son of infamous drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. What followed was a city turned into a war zone overnight. Ovidio Guzman Lopez, 32, was a high-ranking leader within the Sinaloa cartel, the empire his father built. His capture wasn't just about one man. It was a direct strike at the heart of one of the world's most powerful drug trafficking organizations. For months, Mexican intelligence and military forces prepared, tracking Ovidio's movements carefully. The operation was swift and precise, aiming to detain him before cartel gunmen could react. But the cartel was ready. As soon as the arrest was made, the streets erupted in chaos.
Pase, por favor, pase, por favor. Salgan los tres. Tranquilo, aquí, señor. Tranquilo. Listo. ¿Dónde aquí tomamos uno? ¿Traes armas?
No, él no tiene nada que ver.
The moment soldiers secured Ovidio inside his home, the cartel launched a furious counterattack. Armed gunmen set burning vehicles to block roads, unleashed a hailstorm of bullets, and even targeted aircraft at the local airport.
Confirming one of its planes scheduled to depart this morning was struck by gunfire. The airline now canceling all flights to the 3 main cities in the region, and the government also confirming a Mexican Air Force plane was shot as well.
The cartel's firepower included heavy machine guns mounted on trucks, forcing military helicopters to make emergency landings. Passengers on a commercial flight in Culiacan crouched in fear as gunfire rang out nearby, a reminder that this war was happening in the middle of a civilian city. Despite the military's show of force, the cartel's response was overwhelming. At least 29 people died, including 10 soldiers. Dozens more were injured as the battle spilled into neighborhoods, forcing residents to flee and schools to close. Inside the besieged compound, Ovidio was pressured to call his associates. His voice, strained with urgency, pleaded for the violence to end. He ordered his men to stand down, hoping to halt the bloodshed, which did not happen. What happened next would shock the nation. The Mexican government, faced with escalating violence and mounting civilian casualties, made the controversial decision to release Ovidio Guzman Lopez. The military withdrew, leaving the cartel in control of Culiacan streets once more. This wasn't the first time the cartel had forced the government's hand. In 2019, the same operation had ended the same way, illustrating the cartel's brutal power and influence.
The battle in Mexico over an attempt to arrest the son of the notorious drug lord El Chapo, turning the streets into a war zone. Vehicles set on fire to keep the authorities out, the police eventually letting El Chapo's son go, and tonight Mexico's president is defending that decision.
The operation exposed a brutal reality. The Sinaloa cartel, under the leadership of Los Chapitos, Ovidio and his brothers, wielded enough force to paralyze a major city and dictate terms to the state. Mexico's president defended the decision to prioritize civilian safety, but critics argued this showed a dangerous concession to criminal violence. However, in the months and years following, Ovidio was finally captured again and extradited to the U.S., where he faced charges linked to fentanyl trafficking and other crimes. His guilty plea marked a major victory for law enforcement, cracking open the cartel's inner workings. But the Battle of Culiacan stands as a stark lesson. The cartels may have money and guns, but when they mess with the wrong military, the one prepared to fight, persist, and outlast, the cost is devastating for everyone involved. The chaos, the fierce firefights, the city under siege, it all proved the cartel underestimated the resolve of Mexico's security forces. And despite setbacks, the battle for control continues. Capturing and forcing El Chapo's son to face justice is nothing compared to what happened with his father, El Chapo himself. In the next case, we witness something more intense and high profile.
So these pictures came into us in the last hour. They're taken from a camera on the helmet of one of the soldiers going in here. This is a raid on the safe house where he was hiding in his home state of Sinaloa.
January 8th, 2016. In Los Mochis, Sinaloa, Mexican Marines stormed a house known to harbor one of the top assassins of the Sinaloa cartel. What they didn't expect was to find Joaquin El Chapo Guzman himself. El Chapo was Mexico's most wanted drug lord. At 58 years old, he was the mastermind behind a global drug empire, moving heroin, methamphetamine, cocaine, and marijuana with ruthless efficiency. After his shocking escape from a maximum security prison 6 months earlier, the pressure to recapture him was enormous. Months on the run had only hardened El Chapo's resolve. His cartel was armed to the teeth, packing assault rifles, Barrett 50 cal sniper rifles, and even rocket-propelled grenade launchers. These weren't just criminals. They were paramilitary-level fighters guarding their kingpin. For the Mexican Navy's Special Forces, this mission was about more than just a raid. It was a decisive strike against the Sinaloa cartel's leadership. Backed by U.S. Delta Force operatives and federal marshals, the Marines moved in with precision. The raid erupted into a fierce firefight. Cartel gunmen fought viciously, but the military's discipline and training prevailed. 5 cartel members were killed, 6 wounded, while only 1 Marine was injured. In the chaos, Guzman slipped into a network of tunnels beneath the house, attempting one last desperate escape.
Vamos arriba, vamos arriba, vamos arriba. Dos aquí.
El Chapo's escape was short-lived. After emerging 1.5 kilometers away, he carjacked a vehicle but was soon spotted by federal agents. His offers to bribe officers with cash and property fell flat. Threats followed, but the lawman held firm. As reinforcements arrived, the military coordinated to secure the area, moving El Chapo to a safe location while avoiding an anticipated rescue attempt by an estimated 40 cartel assassins. The operation was a delicate balance of force and strategy.
The man with the towel over his head is believed to be El Chapo, being led by Mexican authorities to an airplane bound for Mexico City. After a massive operation in the town of Los Mochis early this morning, Mexican Marines captured the drug lord.
Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto announced the capture with a triumphant tweet, "Mission accomplished. We have him." For the government, this was a critical victory, not just politically, but in the war against drug cartels that had long terrorized the country. The haul from the raid was staggering, a weapons cache that included grenade launchers, sniper rifles, and armored vehicles. It revealed the cartel's military-grade firepower and the scale of the threat they posed. This wasn't just a drug bust. It was a statement. The cartels had met their match in the Mexican Navy's Special Forces and their U.S. allies. The buildup to this moment had layers. Guzman's own decision to grant a high-profile interview with Sean Penn humanized him, but also exposed his network. It was a bold move that ultimately backfired, drawing international attention and intelligence resources that led to his recapture. The fallout was swift. Guzman faced extradition to the United States, charged with money laundering, drug trafficking, kidnapping, and murder. His empire was shaken, and his freedom was taken away for good. But the story also sent a message to cartels everywhere. No matter the power or firepower, messing with the military means facing the full force of the law. El Chapo's capture proved that even the most elusive kingpin could be brought down by elite, coordinated military operations. So, the Sinaloa cartel learned a brutal lesson. The Mexican Navy's Special Forces came prepared, trained, and relentless. They weren't just another target. They were the force that ended the reign of one of the world's most dangerous criminals. For those who didn't know, some people call El Chapo the Pablo Escobar of the current generation. His power, influence, and reach were indeed remarkable. In our next case, we see a more dramatic downfall of the most powerful figure in drug cartel history, Pablo Escobar.
Escobar, who had the blood of hundreds on his hands, died almost defenseless, trying to escape across a rooftop. He'd been shot repeatedly by troops who had surrounded the two-story house.
December 2nd, 1993, Medellin. The king of cocaine, Pablo Escobar, made one final mistake. A phone call that would end an era. For 16 months, Escobar had played a deadly game of hide-and-seek with Colombia's elite search block, moving constantly, never sleeping in the same place twice. But on his 44th birthday, his need to hear his family's voices overrode his caution. The search block was no ordinary police unit. Created specifically to hunt Escobar, they worked in partnership with U.S. intelligence and military advisors. Their mission was clear: capture or kill the most dangerous drug lord in history. As Escobar's power crumbled, his calls became more frequent and desperate. What happened next changed the course of the drug war forever. Using advanced voice recognition technology supplied by the United States, the search block finally triangulated Escobar's location. Armed with this breakthrough, they surrounded a modest house in the Los Olivos neighborhood of Medellin. For months, Escobar had outsmarted his pursuers with elaborate decoys, safe houses, and a network of loyal informants. But this time, his luck ran out. As soldiers closed in, Escobar and his bodyguard tried to escape across the rooftop. It ended in a hail of gunfire. The investigation would later reveal the full scope of Escobar's empire. Billions in cocaine profits, luxury prisons he designed himself, and a war that claimed tens of thousands of lives. His death marked a turning point in Colombia's fight against the drug trade. But the immediate aftermath was chaotic. Crowds gathered at the scene, some cheering, others mourning. Over 25,000 people attended Escobar's funeral, many viewing him as a modern-day Robin Hood. The military maintained a heavy presence, anticipating retaliation from the remnants of his cartel.
Chaotic scenes at the funeral service for Pablo Escobar. Drug trafficker, billionaire, killer, but a hero to thousands in his home city of Medellin. The guns that surrounded him in life surrounded him in death.
Escobar's family became instant targets. His wife and children attempted to flee the country, only to be stopped and placed under government protection. The search block's victory came at a steep price. Many of its members remained targets long after Escobar's death. The impact was immediate and profound. The Medellin cartel fractured, and the Cali cartel quickly moved to fill the power vacuum. But the Colombian government's message was clear: no one was above the law, not even the king of cocaine.
This killing is the biggest single blow to international drug trafficking in a decade. But it does not mean that fewer drugs will find their way onto the streets of Britain and America.
While drug trafficking continued, Escobar's death proved that organized crime could be defeated through determination, technology, and international cooperation. The search block's victory became a blueprint for future operations against powerful criminal organizations. Escobar was a powerful figure in the drug trafficking realm, but in the end he was no match for the determined military after his life. Next, we'll see how another cartel underestimated a military force, this time in Mexico, where the modern-day battle between cartels and government forces takes a dramatic turn.
The shootout between Mexican special forces and a small army of heavily armed drug gangsters ricocheted through the streets of Cuernavaca, Mexico for 4 hours.
December 16, 2009, Cuernavaca, Morelos. Mexican Navy Special Forces cornered one of the country's most powerful drug lords, Arturo Beltran Leyva, in a luxury apartment complex. What followed was a 4-hour battle that would mark a turning point in Mexico's war against the cartels. Arturo Beltran Leyva, known as the boss of bosses, was more than just another trafficker. He controlled up to 30% of the cocaine entering the United States, according to security experts. His organization was notorious for violence, corruption, and its ability to buy off officials. But in Cuernavaca, the Navy wasn't for sale. For months, intelligence units tracked Leyva's movements. They knew the army was compromised, too many connections to the cartels. That's why the Navy was chosen for this operation. Their reputation was untainted, their loyalty unquestioned. The stage was set for a direct confrontation. At 8:00 p.m., 200 Navy commandos surrounded the altitude apartment complex. Leyva and his men were heavily armed, prepared for a siege. What they didn't expect was the level of force and precision the Navy brought to bear. The cartel's response was immediate. Grenades flew from the windows, injuring 3 sailors. Automatic weapons fire echoed through the building. But the Navy held their positions, methodically tightening the net. The operation wasn't just brute force. Navy units evacuated residents to safety, moving them to the building's gym. Civilians were shielded from the crossfire as the elite forces advanced floor by floor. 3 cartel gunmen fell in the initial assault. A 4th, realizing capture was inevitable, took his own life. But Leyva refused to surrender. For 2 hours, he exchanged fire with the advancing commandos. The Navy's discipline never wavered. Even as grenades exploded around them, they maintained formation, pressing forward with calculated precision. This was no ordinary police raid. This was military doctrine against cartel chaos. Stacks of $100 bills as well as weapons were seized from the apartment. When the smoke cleared, Arturo Beltran Leyva was dead. The Navy had scored its biggest victory in President Calderon's war against the cartels. But success came at a price. What followed was a wave of violence as Leyva's lieutenants fought for control. This operation proved a crucial point. The Mexican Navy can be incorruptible and unstoppable. The cartels had finally met a force they couldn't buy, intimidate, or defeat with brute strength. Leyva's fall was a turning point, but as the next case shows, the Navy's resolve would soon be tested again, this time by a cartel that thought it could outgun the military. The cycle of violence was far from broken.
Mexico's Navy says it's confident it has killed one of the country's top drug lords. Heriberto Lazcano, the head of the Zetas cartel, is believed to have been shot during a gun battle with Marines on Monday. Forensic tests are being carried out on the body.
October 7th, 2012, El Verdugo, the executioner, fell in a hail of bullets. But before dawn, his body vanished from the funeral home, leaving only mystery behind. This is the story of Heriberto Lazcano, the Zetas founder, whose myth refuses to die. This is how he finally messed with the Mexican military and paid the ultimate price. Heriberto Lazcano, known as El Verdugo, the executioner, was more than just a drug lord. He was a former Special Forces soldier who became one of the most feared cartel leaders in Mexico. Lazcano's reputation for brutality earned the Zetas their infamous legacy: public beatings, mass graves, and a reign of terror that stretched from Texas to Central America. The Zetas' power grew through military discipline and ruthless violence. Under Lazcano's command, they pioneered cartel tactics like deportation, mass killings, and targeting civilians. His leadership transformed a group of Gulf cartel enforcers into a criminal army with more than 10,000 gunmen. But by 2012, Lazcano's empire was crumbling. Internal power struggles with his deputy Miguel Trevino, Z40, threatened to tear the Zetas apart. The military pressure was relentless as the Mexican government targeted cartel leaders with increasing intensity. On that fateful day in October, Mexican Marines tracked Lazcano to a small town in Coahuila. The operation was meticulously planned, using military intelligence and special forces tactics that mirrored the skills Lazcano once taught his men. The firefight was brief but decisive. Lazcano and his bodyguard were killed in the exchange. The military secured the area, conducted preliminary identification, and announced the death of one of Mexico's most wanted men. But the victory was short-lived. Within hours, armed men stormed the funeral home where Lazcano's body was held. In a brazen display of cartel power, they reclaimed their leader's remains, leaving only speculation and conspiracy theories in their wake.
But there are already local reports here that they no longer have the body, actually. Some of those reports say that they handed the body over to Lazcano's family, and other reports say that a criminal group actually took the body from a funeral home.
The disappearance of Lazcano's body fueled rumors that he might still be alive. Some claimed the military staged his death to claim the reward money. Others believed the body was handed over to his family in secret. The truth remains elusive. Despite the missing body, forensic evidence confirmed Lascano's death. The military's operation dealt a devastating blow to the Zetas' leadership. The timing was significant, coming just weeks before Mexico's presidential transition and signaling a major victory in the drug war. Lascano's death marked the beginning of the end for the original Zetas organization. Without his military discipline and strategic vision, the cartel fractured into warring factions. The once feared criminal army devolved into a patchwork of violent gangs fighting for territory. Heriberto Lascano's legacy is one of terror and innovation in cartel warfare. His death at the hands of the military proved that even the most formidable criminal empires can be brought down. But the disappearance of his body ensured that El Verdugo's myth would live on, fueling conspiracy theories and nightmares alike. The lesson was clear. No matter how powerful a cartel leader becomes, the military's reach is relentless. The executioner's fate became a warning to all who challenged the state's authority. Lascano's end meant the promotion of his deputy. In the next chapter of this bloody saga, we'll see how the military ended Lascano's replacement in a more surprising confrontation.
Mexican Marines have captured the suspected leader of the notorious Zetas drug cartel, Miguel Angel Trevino Morales.
July 15, 2013. Early morning darkness still clings to the border town of Nuevo Laredo as Mexican Marines roll quietly down a dirt track. Their target is Z40, Miguel Angel Trevino Morales, the most brutal cartel boss in Mexico's history. For months, Trevino believed he owned this territory. But today, the Marines are about to prove otherwise. Miguel Angel Trevino Morales, known as Z40, built his empire on pure terror. Once a teenage runner for Los Tejas, he rose through the Gulf Cartel ranks until defecting with the original Zetas, ex-Special Forces soldiers who became Mexico's most violent criminal syndicate. Trevino's signature move? The guiso, burning enemies alive in 55-gallon drums. His reputation for cruelty made even hardened criminals flinch. The Zetas under Z40 pioneered new levels of brutality. Their crimes shocked even seasoned investigators. Massacres, decapitations, and the infamous Monterrey casino attack that killed 52 people. By 2013, Trevino Morales controlled vast stretches of Mexico, making millions from drugs, kidnapping, extortion, and human trafficking. But power brought arrogance. Z40 began to trust only his immediate circle, locking himself away or traveling in heavily armored convoys. He believed his home turf in Nuevo Laredo was impenetrable. That confidence would be his undoing. The Mexican Navy launched an intensive surveillance operation, tracking Z40's movements through border dirt roads. After weeks of patience, they identified a pattern. On July 15th, the Marines waited in darkness, catching Trevino's convoy off guard on a remote border road. Inside his armored pickup, $2 million cash, 8 guns, a bodyguard, and an accountant. The kingpin who once controlled a criminal empire fell without a single shot fired.
Mexican authorities have arrested Miguel Angel Trevino, aka Z40, the leader of the infamous Zetas drug cartel. Mexican Marines intercepted his pickup truck close to the border with the US following a months-long operation.
The government wasted no time parading their prize. Z40's mugshots flashed across national news. The press conference detailed his crimes: 7 arrest warrants, 12 criminal investigations, and charges ranging from murder to arms trafficking.
This person has 7 arrest orders issued by federal judges and is at the center of 12 criminal cases.
It was a clear message. No cartel boss, no matter how brutal, was safe from the military's reach.
He's accused of organized crime, murder, torture, money laundering, and importing specialist military firearms.
Trevino's capture sent shockwaves through the criminal world. The once feared Zetas began to fracture. Rival cartels moved in on their territory, sensing weakness. Z40's own brothers tried to seize control, igniting internal chaos. The myth of Los Zetas' invincibility was shattered. But the Marines' victory came at a price. The power vacuum sparked new violence as remaining factions fought for control. Still, Trevino Morales' arrest marked a turning point. It proved that even the most ruthless cartel leader could fall when the military committed fully. The human cost of Z40's reign became clear as investigators uncovered mass graves and evidence of his atrocities.
The Zetas are thought to be behind an arson attack on a Monterey casino that left 52 dead and the murder and decapitation of hundreds of migrant workers.
Survivors shared stories of torture, extortion, and fear that had gripped entire communities. The military's operation didn't just capture a kingpin, it freed thousands from his reign of terror. Trevino's arrest was also a political triumph for President Enrique Peña Nieto, who promised to reduce drug war violence. But it was also a warning. No matter how powerful, cartel bosses couldn't outrun the military forever. The fall of Z40 marked the beginning of the end for the original Zetas. But if you think that's intense, wait until you see what happened when another cartel, lieutenant, challenged the wrong special forces unit.
The atmosphere appeared tense as Mexican soldiers moved into position Thursday in the western city of Guadalajara. They were going after a top leader of the Sinaloa cartel, Ignacio Coronel Villarreal, known as El Nacho Coronel.
July 29, 2010, Guadalajara. Helicopters chopped through the morning haze above an upscale suburb, signaling the start of a military assault on one of Mexico's most powerful cartel leaders. The man inside that mansion was Ignacio Nacho Coronel, the Sinaloa cartel's number 3, and the architect of their methamphetamine empire. Coronel, known as El Nacho, was El Chapo's right-hand man. His grip on the Pacific trafficking routes made him a kingpin, and a $5 million target for the FBI. For years, his operations stretched from Mexico to Europe, building a drug smuggling empire that seemed untouchable. But Coronel made a fatal mistake. He underestimated the Mexican military's resolve. For months, intelligence units tracked his movements, mapping out his security routines. Soldiers disguised themselves as neighbors, delivery men, and even street vendors. The net was closing in. The operation began before dawn. Elite troops surrounded Coronel's mansion, cutting off all escape routes. Helicopters hovered overhead as soldiers moved in, their rifles ready. Inside, Coronel's most trusted lieutenant, Francisco Quiñones Castellum, was quickly arrested. But the main target was still inside. What happened next would become a legend in the drug war. Instead of surrendering, Coronel grabbed his weapon and opened fire on the soldiers. Bullets ripped through the morning calm, shattering windows and piercing the walls of his luxury home. The firefight was intense. Coronel managed to kill one soldier and wound another in his desperate attempt to escape. But the military's response was swift and overwhelming. They returned fire, pinning Coronel down inside his own home.
But when it came to the drug baron himself, it was a different story. Authorities say he was gunned down. He'd fired on soldiers as helicopters hovered overhead and troops closed in.
The news of Coronel's death sent shockwaves through the underworld. This was no staged arrest. This was a direct message from the military. No one, not even the Sinaloa cartel's top leadership, was untouchable.
During this operation, Nacho Coronel tried to avoid the action by attacking military personnel with gunfire, killing one soldier and wounding another. Responding to the attack, this capo died.
In the aftermath, soldiers discovered evidence of Coronel's vast methamphetamine operation. His labs had produced tons of the drug, fueling an epidemic that stretched far beyond Mexico's borders. The military seized weapons, cash, and key intelligence about Sinaloa's operations. Coronel's death was more than just a tactical victory. It shattered the myth of cartel invincibility. For years, rumors had circulated that the government protected the Sinaloa cartel while targeting rivals. This operation smashed those allegations, proving that no one was safe from military justice.
Coronel's death was the biggest strike against Mexican drug gangs since a raid back in December, and it countered persistent allegations the federal government was favoring the Sinaloa cartel.
The impact was immediate and profound. Rival cartels saw an opportunity to attack Sinaloa's territory. Internal power struggles erupted as Coronel's lieutenants fought for control. But the most important lesson was clear. The army was willing to take on the highest levels of organized crime. Coronel's death proved that even the most powerful cartel leaders could be hunted down and eliminated. It was a turning point in the drug war, and a message written in blood. Next, we'll see how another cartel underestimated the military's reach and paid an even higher price.
This time it's for real, Mexican authorities say. They have killed Nazario Moreno, one of Mexico's most notorious drug lords and leader of the criminal organization known as the Knights Templar.
March 9th, 2014. Mexican authorities claim they've finally killed Nazario Moreno, the notorious leader of the Knights Templar cartel, for the second time. But this time, they say, it's real. Moreno, known as El Chayo, or the craziest one, had become a mythic figure, a cartel leader who supposedly died in 2010, yet continued to terrorize Michoacan. Moreno's story begins in the rugged mountains of Michoacan, where he founded La Familia Michoacana. This wasn't just another drug cartel, it was a bizarre mix of organized crime and cult-like religious fanaticism. Moreno preached a twisted moral code while flooding the United States with methamphetamine. The Knights Templar rose from the ashes of La Familia after Moreno's first death. They adopted medieval symbols and brutal violence, extorting entire communities and controlling vast territories through fear. But their reign sparked an unexpected resistance. Local vigilante groups armed themselves and began fighting back.
The Knights Templar terrorized southwestern Mexico, executing and beating his enemies while trafficking hard drugs and extorting the population.
By 2014, the Knights Templar's grip on Michoacan was slipping. Vigilante groups, tired of government inaction, took matters into their own hands. Hipólito Mora, a key vigilante leader, explained their fight wasn't about ideology. It was about ending the cartel's reign of terror.
Those guys were terrible, he says of the traffickers. They were responsible for murders, kidnappings, threats, beatings, and extortion.
The pressure mounted. Moreno, increasingly isolated, became a ghost, still issuing orders, but always in the shadows. The government, embarrassed by their previous false report of his death, launched an intensive manhunt. Then came the morning of March 9th. Mexican Marines cornered Moreno near Apatzingan, deep in the heart of Michoacan. This time, officials said, there was no escape, no staged death. Moreno opened fire, and the Marines responded with overwhelming force.
This time, however, officials say they confirmed Moreno's identity using fingerprints. They also say they're in possession of his body.
After years of rumors and sightings, the myth of El Chayo was finally put to rest. But the damage was done. Communities scarred by years of cartel violence now faced a new challenge. What comes after the fall of a criminal empire? The Knights Templar's reign ended not with a quiet arrest, but in a hail of bullets. Yet the scars they left on Michoacan remain. Moreno's death marked the end of an era. Next, we'll see what happens when the government decides to go on an all-out war with the country's drug cartels. January 9th, 2024. Ecuador's morning show is broadcasting live when masked gunmen stormed the set, shattering any illusion of safety. This wasn't just another headline. It was the moment organized crime declared open war on the state. But soon, they will learn that they had made a brutal mistake messing with the power of the state. For years, Ecuador sat quietly between the world's cocaine giants, Colombia and Peru. It was known as an island of peace with tourist-friendly cities and deep-water ports. But those same ports turned Ecuador into a trafficking hotspot, drawing in powerful gangs like Los Choneros and Los Lobos. By 2024, these groups controlled prisons, neighborhoods, and even politicians. The real catalyst came when notorious drug lord Adolfo Fito Macias vanished from his maximum security cell. His escape triggered nationwide prison riots. Over 150 guards taken hostage, security forces attacked, and explosions in major cities. The gang's message was clear. They controlled the streets now. President Daniel Noboa's response was immediate and brutal.
Acabo de firmar el decreto de estado de excepción para que las Fuerzas Armadas tengan todo el respaldo político y legal en su accionar. Hago un llamado a la ciudadanía, ya que esta lucha es de todos y que también les den su respaldo.
He declared a state of internal armed conflict, empowering 22,400 soldiers to neutralize 22 designated terrorist organizations. Night curfews blanketed cities while military patrols swept through neighborhoods. But the gang struck back with a chilling campaign of terror, kidnapping police, bombing public spaces, and threatening civilian executions. Even the news wasn't safe. The live studio takeover showed their reach into every aspect of public life. Ecuador's military responded with unprecedented force. Land, sea, and air patrols blanketed critical areas. Random body and vehicle searches became routine. Nighttime curfews brought tense silence to city streets. The crackdown worked, but at a cost. Military dominance restored order, but left communities scarred. Normal life disappeared.
De alguna forma veo que toda la gente también está saliendo, si vemos el tráfico igual, sirenas por todas partes y está todo como un caos acá.
Por supuesto, por supuesto. No solo que está asustada, está aterrorizada la gente. Y no es para menos, y con toda la razón.
Malls closed, businesses shuttered, and fear became constant. The economy suffered as tourism evaporated and trade slowed. Yet, though for the first time in years, the state showed it wouldn't back down.
Nosotros no vamos a negociar con terroristas, ni descansaremos hasta devolverle la paz a todos los ecuatorianos.
President Noboa's hardline stance marked a turning point. Security forces began retaking territory, prisons, and public spaces. The cost was high, but Ecuador's military proved it could match cartel violence with overwhelming force. The gangs learned the state wouldn't surrender, even if it meant turning entire cities into battle zones. For the final case in our story, we go all the way to Colombia to see how two cartel brothers met their end in the hands of the military. Colombia's top anti-narcotics forces launched a punishing raid on the Cali cartel's leadership. This wasn't just any bust. It was the culmination of years of shadow wars against one of the most powerful drug empires ever. The cartel's reign was about to be shattered. The Cali cartel, led by the Rodriguez-Orejuela brothers, Gilberto and Miguel, controlled a vast drug network. Unlike their flashy rivals in Medellin, they operated with surgical precision, using political ties, money laundering, and a low profile to build their empire. Their wealth was staggering, and their influence stretched across continents. But by the mid-90s, Colombian police and U.S. anti-narcotics agencies were closing in. Years of coordinated surveillance, informants, and intelligence gathering had mapped their operations. The cartel's habit of hiding behind layers of protection and secret safe houses was about to fail them. What pushed the authorities to act? The cartel's brazen interference with Colombia's political system and the relentless flow of cocaine into the U.S. had reached a breaking point. The government faced mounting pressure to dismantle the cartel's infrastructure, cutting off billions in drug money. The turning point came when Colombian police, backed by special forces, stormed key cartel locations in Cali. In one dramatic operation, they arrested top lieutenants and associates, including family members. The scale was unprecedented. Miguel Rodriguez Orejuela himself was caught hiding in a secret closet in his apartment. His capture stunned the cartel and the world. The brothers' calm, calculated empire was suddenly vulnerable. The fallout was immediate and seismic. The cartel's leadership was in prison, their finances crippled by international sanctions. The U.S. Treasury Department moved to freeze and seize billions in assets linked to the cartel's money laundering network. The brothers pled guilty years later, marking a rare victory in the drug war. But the takedown didn't end Colombia's drug problems. New criminal groups rose to fill the void, more fragmented, but still dangerous. Still, the 1995 arrest marked the beginning of the end for the Cali cartel's dominance. The operation showed what happens when cartels mess with the wrong military and law enforcement. No empire is untouchable. If you enjoyed this video, like, share, and subscribe to see more true crime.